My name is Ryan. People may know me from needgod.net. But my question for you, Wes, I appreciate the talk on the reliability of the Bible. It's amazing what you said. How does the reliability of the Bible compare with the reliability of the Qur'an? Many Muslims say it's been perfectly preserved. Do they have these unnecessary details and the other things you were mentioning in your talk? If you can speak on that. Thank you.
Great question. For the sake of time, no. That's the short answer, right? I think what we see the Quran is very different in that, like I said, the Bible is 66 books written over a period of 1,600 years on 3 different continents by close to 40 different authors. The Quran is one book written in one time, 7th century, in one place, Arabia, in one language, Hijizi script Arabic. And so, in one sense, it's not really fair to compare the Quran and the Bible because we're comparing apples to orchards. There's just so much more going on with the Bible. But when we look at what the Quran, which comes 600 years after Jesus, communicates, what we see is that it's claiming to communicate facts about very similar people and situations that the Bible is, and yet makes a lot of errors and mistakes that scream lack of verisimilitude and credibility. It mixes up people and places in a way that just should be red flags for us. And ultimately, in chapter 4, verse 157, denies one of the most easily verifiable events of ancient history, which is the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. It says that they neither, talking about the Jews, they neither crucified him, nor did he die, but it was made to appear to them. And it has the Jews boasting, "We killed Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of Mary," which is a very strange thing to say. If the Jews believed that and thought he was the Messiah, they wouldn't have killed him. So it starts off with an error, and then it goes on to completely deny that this event ever happened. And that is a problem for the Quran, and one that has many Muslims that I sympathize painted into a corner and trying to defend it. Because even the most skeptical of scholars, individuals who say, despite all of the stuff we've talked about, we can't really have much reliability in the source information about who Jesus was, but we can know that he was crucified and died under the Roman governorship of Pontius Pilate. We can know that because of both what the Bible teaches and from sources outside of the Bible. And so the Quran denies that simple fact, and in doing so, denies the reality of an event that we have an incredible level of confidence to say that this event actually happened. And then, on top of that, the Quran, time and time again, talks about the previous scriptures that the Jews had, the Torah and the Gospel. And it says that these were documents that were given in the same nature as the revelation of the Quran. They were given with guidance and light. The Arabic word is natsal, sent down in the same way. That Moses was given the Torah and it was full of guidance and light, and Jesus was given the gospel and it was full of guidance and light. And then, in chapter 6 of the Quran, it says, "And let the people of the gospel judge by what they have therein, and if they do not judge by what Allah has revealed to them, then they are the defiantly disobedient." So it prefaces it by saying, God sent the Torah to Moses, he sent the gospel to Jesus, and the people of the gospel, Christians, Dan and I, need to judge by what Allah has given, what God has given to us as Christians, that being the gospel. And if we don't judge by using the gospel, then we are the defiantly disobedient. Here's the problem. When I do that, when I obey that, when I judge using the gospel, and I use that as the lens by which I look into the Quran, I find the Quran has no understanding of the communication of what the gospel facts are, historically or theologically. It denies its central precepts. And so if the Quran is true and it tells me as a Christian to judge by the gospel, then the Quran is false. And if the Quran is false, then the Quran is false. So the Quran has a dilemma, because this is not just in one place. This is in multiple places throughout the Quran. Because I do not think the author of the Quran had any earthly idea what the Torah or the gospel were, and assumed that he knew. And that's where we get stories from people, individuals named in our Bible, like Abraham, like Moses, and even like Mary and Jesus and John the Baptist. but are drawing on sources not historically reliable that we know go back to the source material, but are often oral stories floating around 7th century Arabia, mostly folk tales and apocryphal campfire stories from this time period of Jews and Christians and Zoroastrians, assuming those are what the gospel and the Torah are, and then making these profound mistakes. And then communicates in an effort to get the Jews and the Christians on board by saying, I know what you have, it's a revelation, and what it says is like the revelation that I'm giving to you, so judge by what you have, and judge it by what I'm giving you. And it's not until later, when this book was translated into Arabic in its entirety, that Muslims started to go, uh-oh, we have a problem. And that's where arguments about corruption come into view. And so the first part of the question, is the Quran perfectly preserved? The answer is no. We have textual variants all throughout the manuscript tradition of the Quran in particular manuscripts. There are far fewer manuscripts. And what that does is, in testifying to what I talked about tonight, the fewer manuscripts you have, the more you have to rely that those people get it right. The more manuscripts you have, the more you have the ability to compare and contrast and trace back the original text and have confidence in that. So there are layers of the non-reliability internally and externally to the Quran that communicate that by the same standard, this is true and that's wrong.